Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at the 10 console games with the biggest libraries of games. Do note that we are not including home computers like the MS-DOS ZX Spectrum or Commodore 64, as those were computers, not necessarily home console games.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. The Nintendo Wii. This may come as a shock to some of you, but the Wii has the smallest library out of all of the entries on our list. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? After all, the Wii saw a relatively lengthy lifespan that kind of bled into the Wii U's first couple years. On top of that, we can all recount the times we'd see store shelves littered with shovelware titles for the Wii. Never before had a bargain bin looked so unappealing. By the time it was discontinued in 2013, the Wii had amassed a library of more than 2,500 games. That said, you know there are some hidden gems in there that nobody bought. The PlayStation Vita.
The PlayStation Vita inspires new ways to game.
Given how quickly Sony abandoned it after launch, we're kind of surprised the Vita managed to surpass the PSP's library, let alone the Wii. Whereas the PlayStation Portable only saw about 1,800 games released, the PlayStation Vita managed to squeeze out a few more titles than the Wii did. That's still a lot. Part of this can probably be attributed to smaller developers and key figures voicing their support for the Vita. The support would grow loud enough to inspire more indie developers to make games for it, but alas, the community was still far too small for Sony to give them the time of day. Plus, Nintendo kind of had a strong foothold on the handheld market with the 3DS, so the general public didn't pay much mind to the Vita either, despite what revisionists may tell you.
Never stop playing with PlayStation Vita.
The Sony PlayStation. For as fondly as we remember the Nintendo 64, that console got nowhere close to reaching the number of games the PS1 would get. Because of how expensive it was to print games on cartridge compared to CD-ROMs, the Nintendo 64 only saw a little less than 400 games developed. The PS1, on the other hand, soared to just shy of 3,000 titles. The costs were so low that many companies who had partnered with Nintendo were jumping ship to make deals with Sony, just as Square would do with Final Fantasy VII. The Xbox Series XS. Honestly, we're just as surprised as you were probably to see a game console this recent make it onto this list. Admittedly, it manages to get on here because of a big technicality. At the time of this video, the Xbox Series XS has amassed a library of only about 400 games. That's only if you're counting games made specifically for the consoles though. Remember that this is a machine with a ton of backwards compatibility, giving many old games enhancements like higher resolution output and higher frame rates. So, when you add in all of those Xbox 360 and Xbox One games, you're looking at a library that's quickly passing the 3,000 mark. PlayStation 2. Much like the Wii, the PlayStation 2 saw a ton of support from developers big and small. Companies like Activision, THQ, Electronic Arts, and many others seem to be pumping out a new game every other week. Of course, not every one of these games were heavy hitters, but with sales being strong for so long, games were being pushed out for it well into 2012. Sony didn't say enough was enough until we hit 2013. And with the PS2 lasting 13 years on the market, we saw a library grow from just a few games to more than 4,300 games. That's crazy. The Xbox 360.
Excellent! And finally,
while the Series XS does have backwards compatibility support for every Xbox that came before it, Grandpappy Xbox 360 still has the young and beat. Looking back, it really isn't all that surprising. Third-party support was so strong for the 360 that it was common to see developers take exclusivity deals from Microsoft. Of course, Halo and Call of Duty carried the console's success for a majority of its life, but if it were given just a couple hundred more titles, the Xbox 360 would have crossed the threshold and reached a library of more than 5,000 games. Sadly, many of these titles have disappeared due to licensing agreements expiring, studios shutting down, or online multiplayer games getting their plugs pulled. At the time of this video, Microsoft plans to shut down the Xbox 360 storefront entirely in July 2024. The PlayStation 3. Given just how successful the Xbox 360 was, it's almost hard to believe that the PS3 garnered a bigger library. Throughout the 7th generation, Sony was struggling with the PS3. Folks simply weren't wanting to shell out $600 for a console that didn't play games as smoothly as the 360. Plus, some games were getting a little too cute with the obnoxious 6-axis motion control functionality. Still, enough devs believed the PS3 market deserved the attention, and by the time the console was discontinued in 2016, the PS3 boasted a catalog of more than 5,100 titles. 5,100 games, guys. It's worth keeping in mind that this wasn't just PS3 only games either. The console saw a wealth of PS1 and PS2 titles added to its digital storefront at $5 to $10 a pop. Unfortunately, just like the Xbox 360, many of those titles have been wiped away, cast out into the digital ether to never be seen again, all because of licensing agreements, always online functionality, and studios shuttering. The Xbox One.
Tell that to the Covenant.
Now, this was the most surprising find in our research. The Xbox One has been known to be one of Microsoft's biggest failures. Those who saw their 2013 E3 showcase can tell you firsthand how focused Microsoft was in making the Xbox One your supposed ultimate entertainment center. They were marketing a video game console as if they were trying to replicate the PS2's success, with talks of watching TV while watching a sports game, while playing Call of Duty, while cooking up a Hot Pocket, while calling your mom. It was such a mess that Xbox executives like Phil Spencer have come out and admitted that the console almost killed the brand. And despite all of that, despite the years of failing to push units out beyond diehard Xbox fans, the Xbox One still managed to generate a meaty library. With backwards compatibility factored in, you're looking at about 7,700 games. It's insane.
You look nice.
Thank you.
The PlayStation 4.
I found some.
Get in the boat, boy.
As many already know, Xbox's mistakes were Sony's gains. That 2013 showcase was so catastrophic that it allowed Sony to gain the upper hand before the PS4 was even out. Really, that How to Share Used Games video with PlayStation head Shuei Yoshida was the turning point. It also helped them in how Nintendo was fumbling the Wii U horribly too. The PS4 went on to see years upon years of success across first, second, and third-party games, with many straight up axing the other platforms just because more people were on PS4. And to this day, there are still games coming out on PS4. At the time of this video, Moby Games estimates that there are more than 10,000 games on PlayStation 4. While that number is slowing down as more customers and developers begin migrating to PlayStation 5, we wouldn't be surprised if the PS4 reaches 11,000 games by the time it's discontinued. Just keep in mind that a decent chunk of those games have been delisted for the same reasons why PS3 and Xbox 360 have lost so many titles over the years. The Nintendo Switch. At a glance, it is almost impossible to comprehend just how big the Switch's library is. You walk into a store, see how many games are lined up on the shelf, and it makes you think that the Switch does have a solid few thousand titles on the market. But when you factor in the eShop, Nintendo's digital storefront, that number does multiply substantially. According to Moby Games, the Nintendo Switch has amassed a library exceeding 10,000 games. While that is no number to scoff at, it is cause for alarm given the concerns for game preservation, the overabundance of game studios and indie devs cropping up, and the issue of some developers flooding the storefront with menial shovelware being sold for less than $1. 10,000 games is a lot, especially if you have really been investing your time into your Switch, but some of these caveats are worth paying attention to and discussing.
And
that was all you could do.
But enough of my concerns and alarm raising. Which of these consoles had a library that appealed to you the most? And what were your favorite games on that platform? Let us know in a civil manner down in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays for more great videos every day.